Good morning. I have a client I'd like to tell you something about so that you can learn from experience. This is a man I'm working with who has a belief, we were discussing this yesterday morning, has a belief that change is the result of disaster. That when he needs to make changes in his life or something is put upon him, such as divorce, that it is a catastrophe. Everything in his life is going to fall apart. The fear of change obviously comes from childhood, but this terror of catastrophe happening, and we all can do that. We all can create catastrophes. We all can create emergencies and crises at any point in time, because for the most part, so many of those that we go through are self-created, not a reality. All of us have problems. It isn't necessarily a crisis. Crisis is a perspective. And in his mind's eye, he had a divorce that was coming up, and that was putting him in a tenuous position. And simultaneously, as things do happen when it's time for a major shift in your life, what ended up happening is that there was a complete overhaul at work. There was a whole restructuring going on at the hospital where he works. And so much was going to be happening in his life. He felt like every rug he was standing on was pulled out from underneath him. And of course, all of this meant catastrophe. In working together, what he came to see is that maybe there is no catastrophe at all. In starting with the marriage, the relationship hadn't been working for years. And they both knew that, and yet they both stayed because that's where they were. It was much safer to stay than it was to end, so each could go on and be far happier with their lives. Once the decision was made to end the marriage and file for divorce, what ended up happening is that in moving out, he found a home that he enjoyed. And the more he sat in it for a month, 6 weeks, the more he realized he could afford to have somebody come in and redesign a few things, take down a few walls, fix it up, so that in his mind's eye, he would have the most ideal home that he could ever imagine living in. And right now, at the moment, his home is in the middle of being fixed up, being revitalized to create the home he absolutely would love living in. So he's filled with excitement now about the possibilities of what can happen in his home. Simultaneously, believing nobody will ever love him again, his life will never go on, he'll be alone for the rest of his life. He's met somebody. And through some support from myself, is going a whole lot slower than his natural tendency would be, in order to support him making conscious decisions rather than rushing in and reacting in the midst of transition. Being newly divorced, it's important to take some time to go slow, take it easy, make some choices that support you rather than jumping in, as I mentioned yesterday, and grabbing onto the first thing that comes along. This may end up being a long-term relationship, and it may simply be a wonderful gift in the midst of transition for him. Time will tell. In terms of work and the restructuring and working together, he was able to remember all that he brings to the table. And in the restructuring, asked for a position that was quite a bit higher than where he was, and even had the audacity to ask for a bonus. Going into this new position, he wanted a bonus, an increase in salary, and moving up 2 levels in the organization. He called frequently during the next 48 hours and ended up every single thing he asked for, he achieved. I share this with you in that by going slowly, by not reacting but responding, by recognizing that our fear of change, our fear of transition, our fear of the shifts that every one of us goes through throughout life. There are many, many transitions each one of us make. The longer we're here, the more transitions we've gone through. With each one of them, we can fear catastrophe. We can fear crises showing up. We can fear losing everything we've built our entire lives. When in fact, if we let go of the fear and we step back, any number of things can happen for you. Any number of situations can happen for you by stepping back, not reacting, and eliminating the illusion of catastrophe and crises. Because, yes, some changes are very dramatic. Leaving a home he's lived in for a couple decades, leaving a marriage he's been in for a couple decades, having a major restructuring at the office, at the hospital, major restructuring, major change. But change doesn't necessarily mean catastrophe or even crises. It may simply mean change and a chance to step back. And in the midst of it, since where you were doesn't fit anymore, you define where you want to go rather than land wherever it is you land. Making conscious choices, you can get to make decisions that support who you are, who you want to be, and how you want to live your life. Remember transition as a time of exploration, as a time of freedom, as an opportunity to redefine who you are, where you want to go, what you want that to look like, and how it is you want to arrive. In this instance, who he wanted to be was somebody with far more authority, far more impact and influence within his organization. And he wanted to be compensated for that. And he wanted a bonus because he was moving into a whole new position, and there was going to be a period of major adjustment, and he wanted to be compensated. And all of that was achieved. With support, with help, anything can happen, and you can begin to see that transition is simply an opportunity for growth and change. It doesn't need to be the major ending of everything in your life, including your life itself. It's simply a transition away from some parts of your life are moving in the past, while other parts, doors are opening, and you're becoming so much more alive, so much more consciously choosing, because the person who is choosing today is not the man who made choices 20, 25 years ago. And that applies to you as well. The man or woman making choices today is doing it from a very different place, from a very different sense of self, from a very different career position than decisions you made 20, 30 years ago. Remember, the person today is making these decisions, not the person of 20, 30, 40 years ago. Have a great day and recognize change, transition. It's a gift you're given in order to become freer and freer and more of who you're meant to be. Have a great day.